when we were bored on deployment, you just go lift something. You're doing 2-a-days, sometimes 3-a-days on deployment. Yes! How y'all poop when you're shooting a bazooka?
At the end of the day, I was assigned to clean the weapons and stuff like that, and I came down to where the trigger was and bam. What's up, fire team? Welcome back to Shift Fire, the exploration and appreciation of military culture. I am Israel Wright. It's great to be back with you. I'm a former Green Beret out of Fort Lewis, Washington, and with me, as always, the indomitable.
What's going on, folks? My name is Cameron Fath. I'm a former Army Ranger, and you are tuned in to another episode of Interrogating Cam and Israel, where Izzy and I answer your questions. Yes, that's right. The questions that you posed in past videos, we're gonna take a look and hopefully answer them in the best way we can. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay up on the latest and greatest from all things Shift Fire. Without further ado,
Maximilian Novak wants to know, what has been the most ridiculous task or exercise you had to do in your basic training or Special Forces selection that made absolutely no sense for the experiences in your assignment?
Or you're just like, why are we doing this? We're never gonna do this.
Why are we doing this? Yeah. You know, my training from start to finish was about 2 years. You know?
Yeah.
I saw the purpose in everything I did, and I guess maybe in other cases I was just too new and too dumb to notice whether or not it was worth it.
Regiment was really good about planning their training, and like even to this day, they only send their guys to schools that make sense. All the training we did was in direct relation to combat operations that we would probably foresee ourselves in the future, or we're currently conducting. So this one comes from Akmal, and they want to know, how do you recover mentally from seeing probably the worst thing about war and humanity in general? Does it affect the way you live your life? You know, having seen a lot of war atrocities in the flesh, it really makes you appreciate what you have here, especially if you're going to a third world country and just seeing how they live, like seeing what actual, you know, oppression looks like. You appreciate the small things and you don't take life too seriously, because living in negativity and all that, I don't know how people do it, man. I just appreciate life.
You don't know what poverty is. You know, you may think you know, but I think very few of us actually experience that kind of hardship.
Dwelling on that stuff and asking myself, why, is never good, you know? Just really working on yourself, finding something that gives you fulfillment. Just doing things every now and then that just bring you mental peace. Literally ask yourself why these things are happening, because at the end of the day, you only are in control of what you think, but not letting that negativity, you know, take over, I think is extremely important.
I've been fortunate, I feel like, in my Christian faith. I've had a good community. I've had the Word of God to guide me in prayer. That's been a major component of, you know, just coming back out and just living life and just practice gratitude, practice being grateful for what you have. Even if you don't think you have a lot, there's always something to be grateful for. Leon Kennedy from Resident Evil, Leon S. Kennedy asked us a question.
Wow, celebrity.
Leon, all right. Have you seen someone in the military that has engravings / designs on their guns, and does it give you a tactical advantage?
In special operations, you have a lot more freedom to customize your gun than, you know, a lot of conventional forces, just because they're pretty limited on equipment. But the most I've ever done was like paint my gun and a custom like khaki snakeskin color. Can't really engrave your stuff. They'll come after you because the military doesn't like you breaking their...
They did like some paint jobs, obviously, like desert camo paint jobs.
Khaki base paint, put a net over it and do stripes of OD and tan to give it kind of a snakeskin. That's as most as you're gonna get. You don't get extra killing power. Sorry. Next question.
Take it.
All right, this question comes to us from Hans Stephenson, and they would like to know, what was the best / worst country's armed forces you trained with? American Navy SEALs. No, I'm kidding. The Iraqis.
The Iraqis, man, the Iraqi military. Now, listen, that's not an insult. I'm just telling you what my experience was, and obviously, you know, we tried to outfit them as best we could. And there were a lot of dudes that I trained that was like, they joined the Army in order to like have a job and stuff like that.
The Alpinis, and they're the 75th Ranger Regiment equivalent in Italy. Those dudes were badass. We also worked with the Korean Special Forces. They were super cool. Looking at the SDF, they had, you know, AKs, or anything they could have acquired. So some of them had M4s, and they were rocking like airsoft vests and running shoes.
Wow.
So I can't be like, yeah, they were the worst, but you have to think of what they had. And not to mention, they are an extremely prideful people. Like, they will literally fight to the death. So I can't say the SDF, they were the worst equipped, but they would literally die to eliminate ISIS from their city, and that's extremely respectable. But, you know, the best people I've ever worked with was the US of A, baby.
Kebab Man wants to know,
Love kebab.
what was the most embarrassing mistake you made during your training/deployment and why?
Okay, this is another story of why I wasn't a perfect ranger. And this is one of my biggest regrets. If I wasn't a good private and my team leader didn't like me so much, I'd probably be in the 82nd. I lost my cat card, not once, but twice when we were going to Korea to train. We went over there for a joint forces operation to kind of show our force that hey, if you do anything North Korea, this is what you're gonna face. So it was us, Navy SEALs, Korean Special Forces, probably one of the biggest joint military operations that the world has seen. On the way, we stopped in Japan, and of course I was one of 2 privates in the Advon party, so while all the team leaders went out in Tokyo for the night, I had to stay with another guy and watch all the sensitive equipment, or the SI. Luckily, there was a Chili's. Love Chili's, man. There's a Chili's on the air base, and I went down there to get us some food, and on my way back, I ended up losing my military ID and my government travel card. That's like trying to travel internationally without a passport. And then, fast forward 2 weeks later, they give us our first pass to go out in Seoul, and I get wasty pants off soju, and I ended up leaving my wallet in the taxi cab with my new ID in it. So lost my ID twice. We were literally sitting there with our head in our hands because we're never gonna get this cat card because we need the commander's signature for this memo and we didn't know. And literally a miracle happened. Our commander walks in, entire country of Korea, and there's multiple bases that we were working out of, and he walked in and we were oh my God! And we got the signature, I got my ID, and I was obviously, but that was probably the most embarrassing mistake I made.
The most embarrassing thing I ever did in my entire military career was I had a negligent discharge while I was deployed to Iraq. Negligent discharge is when you fire your weapon without meaning to.
Unintentionally fire your weapon.
Unintentionally fire my weapon. And it was actually a 50 cal, it was the mounted 50 cal on the Humvee that I was driving. We had a really bad SOP that we had built up on our team at the time where normally when you leave the base, you have to go by the test fire range, test fire your weapons, and then you're clear to go off base. Well, that usually had a long line in it, and so we wanted to be high speed, we wanted to be cool, so we had this SOP of not clearing our weapons, basically just leaving them hot, and that way we could leave right away because we knew our weapons were cleared. So we came back on to base one day, and at the end of the day, I was assigned to clean the weapons and stuff like that, and luckily the 50 cal was pointed up and out. I came down to where the trigger was and bam, fired off a round. I suppose if I would have accidentally shot a civilian or shot somebody, that would have been worse, but that was bad. I ended up getting taken off my team at that time. I remember taking that helicopter ride up north to the base, getting taken off my team and just thinking, man, I'm not gonna let this defeat me. I'm not gonna feel sorry for myself. I'm gonna continue to train, I'm gonna move on and overcome this. And it ended up, I got to meet some cool guys up there. I met my next team sergeant, Tom, and I had some great experiences while I was up in Mosul as well. So, it all ended up turning out for the good ultimately, but you can't take those kinds of mistakes away. All you can do is, at best, learn from them and
absolutely.
grow from them.
There is no point in trying to hide these things and trying to perceive yourself as the perfect soldier. It's important to take accountability of your mistakes and learn from them and make sure they never happen again. So, proud of you for saying that story, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's tackle this next question.
Oh gosh, please be something lighthearted.
Yeah, literally. Hopefully poop.
Please be a poop joke. Gerardo Hernandez asks, what happens when you run out of ammo? Do you borrow magazines from your buddy, or do you take cover and wait for a resupply?
Am I out of ammo, or are we black on ammo in the entire section? Because that's bad news bears. So when you say I'm black on ammo, it means I'm completely out of ammo. I have nothing on me. So SOP in the military is a full combat load is 7 magazines, equating to 210 rounds, or if you're a saw gunner, anywhere between 600 to 800 rounds on your person at a minimum when you're conducting combat operations. So, I had my 7, and a lot of people will have magazine pouches on their back for other people. So it's really important, especially when you're doing things called ACE reports, is ammo, casualties, and equipment, that you're constantly getting ammo counts and sending them up to the squad leader, because you go into a phase, especially after combat, you do what's called reconsolidation, reorganize. So you'll be hey, give me how many mags you got? Oh, you got 4 magazines, this guy's got 2, give me 1 magazine, now you both have 3. And everybody would carry magazines on their back. So if you're out, you just be grab one off my back and boom, put it in. And it's very cool because even the saws, the Army was very methodical with their thought thought process. Saws are actually able to take M4 magazines. So say you go completely dry on your belts, you can actually borrow a standard steel mag and put it in the magazine port, and you can use 30 round mags in a saw, so you can stay in the fight. But you know, you always have somebody there that has ammo on you, and then you can plan accordingly. What's known as a speedball, which is, you know, at a forward location, it's a duffel bag just full of ammo, water, equipment that gets dropped off, and if you need to resupply, you can do so at like a speedball location. I got it. That's just making things work. This question comes to us from Aaron Robertson. Aaron wants to know, what's the most creative game you or someone else came up with to alleviate boredom on deployments? When we were bored on deployment, you just go lift something.
You just go work out.
Just go work out when you're bored.
So wrecked.
Yeah, you're doing 2-a-days, sometimes 3-a-days on deployment. And if you're super bored, you got like the team room where you can read books, watch a movie, play some video games. But I don't think there was ever a point where like we were so bored that we had to come up with something. There's always something to do. One thing I like to do is just people watch. I'll just hop on like an M110 or like hop on a really high powered rifle and just start people watching. And I found out that every day at 5 p.m., right before prayer would happen, there would be this guy. He was a goat farmer, and he would have at least 100 goats with him. And just himself, he would herd his goats into this little cinder block building. It was like a clown car. So all these goats would fall in, and you wouldn't believe, you're like, how are they packing in there? And then he would literally follow them in, be the last guy, and just disappear till the next day. And you're like, where are they going?
When I was on deployment in Iraq, we had internet.
How else was I supposed to jerk off, man?
That's right.
Staring at the wall? No, thank you.
There was a common drive that had
the drive.
gigabytes worth.
The drive.
Yeah. But let me tell you about SASBall. This was actually during my time training in the Q course for 18 Echo, radio communications. We were miles away from civilization, and all you had to do was do 2 commo shots per day. Call back, good, and then you're not doing anything for the next 8 hours until you do your second commo shot. So SASBall was a little game we came up with. It's basically just a crumpled up ball of electrical and duct tape, right?
Of course.
It was just a simple game of tossing the ball back and forth, right? Only SASBall, you had to come up with the sassiest, the most creative way of tossing your ball back and forth. And more guys would get involved, and there would be more balls being passed back and forth, and it was wild. It was flamboyant, and it was fabulous. And that is
there you go, Green Berets, folks.
Mikey Hammond wants to know, what are some of the most scandalous items you've seen bartered for food or cash or other necessities?
I got my hands on an ISIS flag by trading a knife for one of the SDF guys. There used to be this giant ISIS flag that was 50 by 50 feet. Like, I'm talking like soccer stadium type of like flag. And you could always see it in Raqqa being flown, because that was like their command center. And finally, when they cleared it, they got their hands on it, and I remember they're unloading this truck right by our fob, and I see this giant potato sack get offloaded, and I was like, what is that? And then all of a sudden this guy starts pulling out that flag, and I was like, hey, that guy's got the flag, man, he's got the flag. We all run down there and like, okay, what do you want? We're gonna burn this anyway, so he just gave it to us.
I have no evidence nor knowledge, and I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of any alcohol on any American base ever on foreign soil. However, if one were in possession of some alcohol, that would be a great way to get some equipment faster from a different unit, or maybe get some information, stuff like that, because alcohol was very difficult to come by.
Especially in a Middle Eastern country where it's kind of like a no-no.
Yeah, one might be able to do what's called a deal. Yeah, make some deals, make some special barters for that alcohol to maybe get some repairs done quicker on your equipment. But yeah, not that I have any knowledge of any of that.
Yeah, of course not. That would make you a terrible person.
Bombamos wants to know, was there an engagement where you actually thought it might be the end? No. I have no conception of my own death or severe dismemberment or injury, anything like that.
You don't think about death, you just think about how you're gonna react to a specific situation. Right. And you know, if it happens, it happens, but at least you're gonna fight it out. But there was one incident that happened where, you know, thankfully it got figured out, but it was like me and the Goose team leader at the time and our RTO, we were tasked with getting a specific individual in country that was the only person in country that knew how to use a specific, very new high-tech piece of equipment. I wish I could go into greater detail, but this thing gave us such a competitive edge. We had to drive 3 hours in an up-armored Land Rover in civilians with like beards and everything and get this guy. And all we had was one SDF escort. And in Syria, there is checkpoints every like 2 miles. And our escort one time blew through one and we ended up getting stopped. I was driving and I had my Glock tucked right behind the e-brake so I could easily access it. And my buddy was right next to me, had his M4 and our RTO was in the back. But the windows can't roll down because it was completely Kevlar encased. So the only way to engage was either to open the door and get out or just blow through it. None of us speak the language, and like it just got into this miscommunication where they started pointing AKs at us and yelling at us, and it was like about to be go time. And then we see the SDF guy flip a U and come burning in. He comes running out. He's like, no, they're with us. So that was a very intense situation. That was just like we were about to get in some. Last question, short and sweet. Yes! This question comes to us from Robert Clark, and he wants to know how y'all poop when you're shooting a bazooka. The easy answer is the bazooka makes you poop. You don't poop yourself. The overpressure from the bazooka will loosen your and it'll just fall right out.
So I have fired many an AT4 in my time in the military, and the pucker factor on it is very high. You have to tense up your body, you have to hold that AT4 very, very firmly, and you fire that thing off, and then you relax afterwards, then you go.
Okay, see, two conflicting answers, but
we may never know the truth.
You have the Green Beret way and you have the Ranger way.
Yeah, the poop bazooka and the sphinctered AT4.
Yeah. Well, folks, that is rounds complete for this episode of Interrogating Cam and Izzy. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Hold on. Okay, thank you. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Go down in the comment sections. Let us know questions you want answered on future episodes of Interrogating Cam and Israel. Don't pull the punches on the poop questions. We love answering them. Go ahead and make sure you subscribe to our channel to stay up on the latest and greatest from all things Shift Fire. Fire team, thanks so much for taking this journey with us. We'll catch you on the next one.
I can't even remember what I did, but he didn't like it. He's like, you know what? Let's go outside right now. He's like, do push-ups.
Was he a Green Beret?
No.
Tell him to kick rocks, dude. Be like, stay in your lane. I remember one dude took control of the new guy group and just started smoking the dog out of us. They're like, you listen to that guy? Do push-ups for assuming that guy had his tab.